I can't even believe it has been 6 months now that I've owned this Takeuchi mini excavator. Today's video is all about the Takeuchi TB235-2 Mini X with cab. When I was doing my research on this particular brand and model Mini X, there weren't many videos out there, so hopefully this video overview will help you learn more about this machine, how to start it, how to operate it as a beginner, and my thoughts on it after 6 months of ownership. Let's get going. The ignition key is back here. We'll let it warm up a little bit. Right here on the armrest is the throttle. And to make it be reactive to the throttle, you've got to turn the automatic decelerate button, which is this right hand button. See how that flashed on the screen? I don't know if you can see the screen because of the sunshine. We'll go ahead and let it warm up a minute. While the machine warms up, let's go over some of the inside the cab features. First of all, we do have a nice big sliding window here on the right hand side. We have the front windshield, which can actually pull completely in and rest along the ceiling. Speaking of the ceiling, we do have visibility, or you can pull this shade over front. Rear view mirror, outside right mirror, you can see this window beside me doesn't open, but the whole door does open and can stay open. I'll show you how to open and latch that a little bit later in this video. Let's talk about the controls here on our right hand side of the operator. This lifts the blade. We're not going to do that yet. And then let's look at these switches. So we've got lights, and when you click these things, oftentimes the display reacts. Let's turn the light on, and then it shows you that the light's on down here. Windshield wiper that we don't need right now. Windshield wiper spray that we don't need right now. Auto throttle, auto deceleration. I usually have that on when I'm running. Saves fuel. We're currently in normal mode, but there is also eco mode and what I call mountain mode for high altitudes. We've got the auxiliary hydraulics. I don't have anything auxiliary connected to my machine. And then the rear beacon, and then the beacon light, which this machine does not have. Just below that, we've got a 12-volt power point and our air conditioning and heating unit. I'll tell you that the heater works great. That's what I've been using most recently. Just turn the knob to turn the fan on. If you wanted air conditioning, you would push the button in for AC. And then just below that is the radio. This is a Bluetooth radio with FM stations. Old school ashtray over here, obviously never used. We've got lots of vents in here that you can aim in any direction. Same thing, we've got one here, got some up front. We've got our display, which we'll go over later. Let's look at the floor. This thing on the left hand side that my foot's on right now. It's just a footrest. That's not a pedal. It looks like a pedal, but it's a footrest. This one on the right, if you can see that, you lift up this cover and you can push on the right or the left to rotate the boom left or right. So if you needed to dig close to something, now all these are not operating right now because I have the safety up. And then you put this back down and that can become a footrest when you're not using it. And then the levers and the pedals are connected. This is your forward and reverse track motion. So the one on the left is on my left, the one on the right is on my right when the blade is in front of me. So if I push forward on this or use my foot to push forward, we would go forward with the right hand track. Same thing with the left hand side, forward or backwards. And again, you can engage that with your foot, or some people like to do it with one hand. Some people like to put one hand on each lever. Just depends on how comfortable you are with driving the machine and what works best for you. When you're ready to operate the machine, this red handle comes down all the way. That makes all the controls live. That means anything I do now, the machine will react. So if I were to lift on this left-hand side joystick, what's going to happen is the boom's going to raise. If I were to push right, we're going to rotate the whole cab right. If I were to push left, I'm going to rotate the whole cab left. And this does rotate around 360 degrees. So this stick, the way I have this set up in backhoe mode, and I'll show you where to change that setting. This is the raise and lower of the boom, and the left and the right of the house. On the right hand joystick, well, let's go back to the left. Also on this left hand joystick is the button that controls, or the slider that controls, whichever way you want to do it, the hydraulic thumb. So you can do it with the slider or you can do it with the buttons. On the right hand joystick, which you can see a little bit better because it's in the sun, this is going to control our bucket. So out, pushing out away from me to the right, dumps the bucket. Pulling in, curls the bucket. Pushing forward, extends the stick, the front part of the boom. Pulling backwards, retracts the stick, the front part of the boom. And then these buttons on the top, like we said, this is the auto throttle, decelerate. So if I hit it, we're going to go up and throttle. And this one on the left is the horn. Then this lever, just to the right of the armrest, is what raises and lowers. So you can keep your eye down here on the front blade. We'll raise the front blade, lower the front blade. So again, raise the front blade, lower the front blade. My machine does not have power angle, but if it did, that would be these two buttons. But my machine does have float, which is the top one. So when I hit this button, it puts the front bucket, the front blade, in float mode. It'll just float over terrain. Push it again, disengage, then you can see you can raise and lower the front blade. Okay, now let's do some movement here. Again, with these you can use your feet or your hand. I'm going to go ahead and use my feet. We'll do both at the same time. You can see if you do one more than the other, it does make you turn. You can do it with your hands. can do the same thing. You can still turn. You can go forward. Let's go ahead and put the blade back down and put the front boom down. We'll get out and show you some things outside. To disengage the controls, so engaged was with this lever down. To disengage everything, lift that up. You can exit the machine. We're gonna go ahead and turn it off so that we can hear a little bit better outside. While we're here, we'll show you opening the front window. A hand on both sides levers, thumb, and then pull in, and it'll slide up. To put it back down, you just pull down, let it lock in place. To exit the cab, you're going to push this lever, open the door, maintain a couple points of contact. So I've got my hand on the handle here, stepping down on the track and out. Remember I said this door can lock open. So there it's locked and you can see it won't close. If you're inside and you want to close the door, you just push down on this lever and that'll let it come back closed. You can see they've even taken the time to brand the inside of the door for when you have it in the locked open position. Again, today we're talking about the Takeuchi TB235-2. Let's take a look at the outside of the machine here. We'll do a quick walk around. I'll need the key in order to show you some of these cubbies. Oh, another thing here, this is where you can put a water bottle or mug, your instruction manual, and that locks up and down. In here, takes the key to open it. Here's your fuses. If you need an emergency engine stop button, that's right here. You just push that. Down here below the door, again, uses the key to open. Little storage area. Back here behind the door is your fuel fill. You can see it's a nice big fuel fill. And there is an inside gauge here that tells you how much fuel you have. Shows that we're getting low. Back here, the rear hood of the engine, because the engine sits behind you on a Mini X. There's the engine. Got a water separator for the fuel with the fuel on off. Here's your dipstick to check the oil. You always want to do that. Here's your air filter, fuel filter, oil fill, and then way down in here, hard to see, is the oil filter. Very difficult to get to. Here's your coolant reservoir. And over here on the side, your radiator. That is all underneath what I call the rear hood. This is your exhaust. And if you have that locked, it will take the key to open it. So if you're on a job site, leaving your machine, you'd probably lock that. Here at home, and I've got the machine out, I don't. I call this the side hood or the side panel cover. Down here, windshield washer fluid. This is actually, you can see the air intake where it's pulling hopefully cleaner air from the side. All this is your hydraulics. Nothing to adjust or change there. But down here, this is where you're choosing mode of hydraulic operation. You can see I've got it in G. They call that backhoe mode. A would be ISO mode. So that would change the functionality of the left and right joysticks when you're sitting in the cab. And depending on which system you learned, you can make that change right here so that you're comfortable operating this machine. I've learned on backhoe mode so that if I'm ever operating a backhoe, then I'm familiar with the control layout and functions. And then in front of that, this is your battery, and it has a nice plastic cover over top of it. Negative terminal, positive terminal. Try to keep those covered up. And then you can see at the top of that hood is the light. From out here, outside, you can see the boom, and this hydraulic cylinder is what lets you articulate that boom left and right, separate from the tractor cab or the Mini X cab. Got our tracks, front blade, and bucket with thumb. I call this part the stick. I call the top part the boom. There are tie down points here. If you're looking at the front blade, that is a tie down point if you were ever trailering this particular machine. There's also a tie down point right here. And then this is the drive side of the tracks. You can see the spokes in there. The front side is called the roller side of the tracks. So again, I'm not an expert, so if I've said any of this wrong or called terms the wrong terms, called parts the wrong terms, please correct me in those comments so that people learn correctly if I've misspoken here during the video. But like I said, I am not an expert operator. I've had this machine for 6 months. Prior to that, I had never used an excavator or a mini excavator. I had never owned a Takeuchi, so this is all stuff that I've learned over 6 months, and then a little bit before that, research online. This video should not serve as a substitute for reading the manual. Always read the manual that came with your machine. This is just information that I'm hoping helps you out if you're learning about this machine, and specifically like when I was doing research about the TB235-2, there were very little videos out there, so I'm hopeful that this helps somebody out if they're looking at this machine. Now, this being pretty much a brand new machine, less than 100 hours on it, I've never had to do this, but if you read, like it says in here, the instruction manual, this plate can come off. You add pressurized grease, the proper grease, and that is what adjusts the tension on the tracks. When you add the grease, it pushes a piston out to add tension to the track. Again, what I have at the front, which is the blade side of the machine, is just a roller. Then here at the back is the spoke and drive side. There are many things I really like about this Takeuchi, and we'll go over those in a minute. But one of the downsides probably has to do with one of the upsides. One of the upsides is this is a commercial grade, commercial quality machine. The downside to that is I don't think it's intended to be filled with a 5-gallon diesel fuel jug. And you can see filling it is not easy. You're thinking, well, use a funnel. The angle that the funnel has to be makes filling it that way impossible. So I probably need to get a tank or a pump and do this a better way, because this way is less than ideal, takes forever, and spills. Let's see if we can get this a little better. And you can imagine with the tank the size of this machine, it takes a long time holding multiple 5-gallon tanks. I mentioned this in a previous video. I'll put a link to that up above. Some things I didn't know about Mini X's before I bought this one. I feel like these are the world's slowest fuel cans when you have to hold them up in the air like this. That's all we need to put in for now. Since I mentioned one negative, I'll mention one more, maybe two more. I love the size of this cab. When you're in there, you don't feel crowded at all. It's nice and wide. The downside is it doesn't give you much track to step on. It's not so much when you're getting in as when you're getting out, trying to maintain your 3 points of contact. Straight down, you almost completely miss that track stepping down. Now I know you could rotate the house a little bit before you get out so you have a nice section of track to step on. It's probably what I should do, but I'm kind of one of those people that likes to park it straight, the house straight, the boom straight, so it seems weird to me to have the house off kilter to step down on the track. It's just a minor thing that I've noticed, especially if you have mud on your shoe getting out, not much to step on, it can be a little bit slippery. The next thing I'll mention, the next negative about this machine is the price. This is not an inexpensive machine, but again, this isn't like a home and ranch quality. This is a commercial quality. So you're getting a machine that's going to last you thousands and thousands of hours, but you're paying a price for that. Kind of one of those you get what you pay for circumstances. The last negative thing I want to mention about the Takeuchi TB235-2 is the lack of resources. I love to do my research, and I like to do a lot of research before I buy something. It was really hard to find information on this machine because it's just not out there. Hopefully this video does really well, because I hope that it's a resource for other people who are doing some research and want to see kind of a walk around of this machine, some of the explanations of how things work and what my thoughts are of it after 6 months. But for example, if you were to research how to, on a Takeuchi TB235-2, do any of the regular maintenance, like change the air filter, change the oil filter, which is a bugger to get down to in here. Any of that is really hard to find information on. It's almost impossible to find a video on YouTube, which I think is the resource that many people go to for information like that. Hopefully you enjoyed this overview video of the Takeuchi TB235-2. Again, I'm not an expert, I'm not a salesperson for these machines. I just happen to be someone who bought one 6 months ago and wanted to show other people some of the things I really like about this machine. Right here beside me, I forgot to mention the type of thumb and bucket. These are tag buckets. This is a 24-inch wide bucket with teeth, and this is a tag thumb on the hydraulic thumb. If you found this video informative and entertaining, we'd really appreciate it if you give us a big thumbs up. Leave comments down below, those of you who know more about the Takeuchis, or specifically the TB235-2 than I do. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll see you again the next time.